A hero's welcome at the airport to Sunil Gavaskar and the rest of the Indian team. They have won the series against the West Indies, the first ever outside of the country. The Bombay Cricket Association hosted a rousing reception to Ajit Wadekar and his team. A thunderous applause for the man of the moment, the 21-year-old Gavaskar, for his sterling debut.
So what happened in the West Indies? Everybody was celebrating the West Indies. Lots and lots of accolades were coming the cricketers' way. But after about a month, the players came back, in end of April, early May. After about a month of celebrations, all of a sudden the penny dropped. And everybody started questioning, you were able to beat the West Indies in the West Indies because this is not the same West Indies. There was no Hall, no Griffith. Hall came back for the fourth test. But obviously this was not the same as Hall. There was no Charlie Griffith, no fast bowlers. How can Rafiq, Jumadeen and Holder and others qualify to be real fast bowlers? So this is definitely not the West Indies that later on became the West Indies under Clive Lloyd, nor was this the West Indies of the 1950s and 1960s. So frankly, it was a mediocre side that Ajit Wadekar's team had beaten. Now, I don't agree with this. India doesn't select its opponents, but that was the rhetoric. That was the rhetoric, and even some of our own former players started using the same rhetoric. If you read contemporary newspapers, magazines, you will see this being bandied around. And everyone, all of a sudden, woke up to the challenge that England, having beaten Australia under Ray Illingworth 2-0, is actually the team to beat. They are the real world champions. So when the Indians travel to England, can they take on England and beat England? And the answer was, no, they can't. Most had written India off, that how can you beat this England side under Ray Illingworth? They are just too good. Nowhere will be the Indian batsman able to score against the likes of John Snow. So this is not the West Indies. That was a bit of a fluke. That's how we enter Lords. But at Lords, the Indians made a statement. If you take a look at that Lords test match, all of a sudden, in the very last day, despite the rain, the interruption, the pressure and all of it, India was very much in business. While the England team would feel that 8 down, they could have wrapped up the match, the Indians also felt that 2 wickets in hand, little runs to score, they could have also won the match. So Lords left India with the bragging rights. All of a sudden, India had proven to the world that with their spinners, and their spinners were fabulous, they could put England under pressure. Ajit Wadekar was leading a good side. Second test match, England really dominated this one. Last day, 420 chase, 60 odd for 3. Vishwanath and Sardesai, maybe India would have lost that, and rain came to India's rescue. So while Lords allowed India the bragging rights, the second test match allowed England the bragging rights, and Illingworth would have said, oh, you know what, we could have gone into the Oval 2-0. But the Indians also could have said, we could have gone to the Oval 1 apiece. So frankly, if you do not take the help of hindsight, if you take the result, there was all to play for going into the Oval Test, and the Indians had done enough to show the world they were there to compete. And in terms of confidence, they had the confidence that they could push England back. So everything to play for at the Oval is how I will put it. The interesting part about the Oval Test is a gripping test. I mean, when you think back to the England series, very many similarities with 2021 Australia. England taking a bit of a lead, India first innings kind of a collapse and then a recovery, 125 odd for 6. Then there was a bit of a recovery. So it was one of those test matches. It was one of those test matches that nobody really knew. I mean, obviously England taking that handy lead, they were on the ascendancy. But going into the England second innings, nobody really knew what could happen. Could India make a comeback? Obviously it was a difficult task, and that's where step in Bhagwat Chandrasekhar. Let me take you back a little bit. Bhagwat Chandrasekhar was not part of the series to the West Indies, and his selection was fraught with a lot of controversy even before England. So much so that when the team was assembled at the Cricket Club of India, Vijay Merchant, the chairman of selectors, pointed at Chandrasekhar and said, "This is your last series, provided you are not able to perform." So Chandra was livid. If you ask people, Chandra was livid. Mr. Gavaskar, for example, confirms to me that Chandra was quite upset at being picked at. Mr. Vishwanath confirmed this to me, that Chandra said, if I'm not good enough, I've not asked you to take me in the team. Don't take me in the team. So he had a lot to prove. He had a point to prove to everybody from the core of his heart. And that's when Milreef was the shout. Now, what is Milreef? Both Chandra and Dilip Sardesai were loved racehorses. And Milreef was the name of a horse. Previous day had done well. Milreef, faster one. That's what it meant. And Chandra delivered the faster one. The rest is history. And that incredible spell. England bundled out for 101. Going into lunch, Chandra on top. And thereafter, they were given no chance. At no point. 38 runs conceded in that spell. 6 wickets for Bhagwat Chandrasekhar. Gundappa Vishwanath says he was fielding close, and he said this was the best he has seen Chandra bowl. He was at the top of his game. The match was set up. India lost the great Sunil Gavaskar. Going into the last day, it was even Stevens. Could there be a collapse for India? Captain Ajit Wadekar had steadied the innings, and everything was there to play for. If Wadekar could win this one for his country, and there was Vishwanath, Sardesai, Abid Ali, he would be part of Indian cricket's folklore. A fantastic, fantastic last day in prospect.
वेस्ट इंडीज पर शानदार विजय के बाद भारत ने 3 टेस्ट सीरीज में इंग्लैंड से मुकाबला किया। लॉर्ड्स मैदान में पहला टेस्ट बारिश के कारण ड्रॉ हो गया। दूसरा टेस्ट भी बारिश ने ड्रॉ कर दिया। अब ओवल मैदान में कैप्टन वाडेकर और दिलीप सरदेसाई की तगड़ी भागीदारी तीसरे टेस्ट की दूसरी पाली में। वाडेकर 45 रन बनाकर रन आउट हो गए। भारत ने पहली पाली में इंग्लैंड के 355 के मुकाबले 284 रन बनाए थे। दूसरी पाली में भारतीय स्पिनर चंद्रशेखर ने इंग्लैंड को सिर्फ 101 रन पर चलता किया। अब विश्वनाथ ने सरदेसाई का साथ देकर विजय का मार्ग प्रशस्त किया। दूसरी ठोस साझेदारी में इंजीनियर और विश्वनाथ। लखर्स की बॉल पर विश्वनाथ को नॉट ने लपक लिया 33 रन के बाद। अब आबिद अली और इंजीनियर। भारत को जीतने के लिए सिर्फ 3 रन बनाने थे। विजय का प्रहार, आबिद अली का स्क्वायर कट। भारत ने 4 विकेट से विजय पाई, रबड़ जीता। पहली बार इंग्लैंड में ही एमसीसी को हराकर भारत ने ऐतिहासिक विजय प्राप्त की। इस जीत में सबसे बड़ा हाथ है लेग स्पिनर चंद्रशेखर का।
The celebrations were like none other. If you go and ask Gundappa Vishwanath, and he will tell you that he's seen 1983, he's seen the celebrations after the 2007 T20 win, the 2011 World Cup win, but this was no less than any other. I mean, the two sides of Bombay, and Shashi Tharoor was in class 11, and Shashi Tharoor tells me he was one of the people who, stood on the road celebrating this team. Unbelievable. If you see some of the photographs, Professor Chandrasekhar had assured the team that it will be a red carpet welcome starting from the airport to the CCI, and he almost fulfilled it. Brilliant. I mean, the amount of people, number of people on the road in Mumbai, trust me, I mean, these are COVID days. You don't want to see those many number of people at all. But those were some days, some celebrations that took part in this country. Multiple felicitations. You know what it's like. Think of Neeraj Chopra. Unfortunately, the fellow got unwell because of the felicitations. And that's what we in India do. PV Sindhu once told me, for 72 straight hours, she was going through one felicitation to another, and then finally she went to sleep in the middle of one. Gopi told her, Amma, udja, felicitation chal raha hai. So this is India. This is uniquely Indian, and that's what these cricketers had to go through as well. Everybody wanted a piece of them. The celebration was unreal. Absolutely unreal. And it is important you understand and gauge what it was like. So here it is.
Airport, New Delhi. The capital greets India's cricket heroes on their return after scoring India's first ever rubber victory in England. Once more, cheers and a standing ovation at Pirosha Kotla, the scene of their earlier triumph over the Australians. Bombay Airport. Thousands await the arrival of skipper Wadekar and his victorious team from New Delhi. Triumphant motorcade to the city. All along the 20-kilometer route, the enthusiasm of the crowd knows no bounds. At a reception at the Brabourne Stadium, Mr. Vijay Merchant says,
So far as I am concerned, Ajit, a great dream has come true. And may God bless you and the Indian cricketers of 1971, you and 19 other cricketers, including those of the West Indies, for making that dream possible.
Where do I place 1971? Mr. Gavaskar places it right below 1983. For me, 1971 was actually the predecessor to 1983. No 1971 means no 1983. It had given us self-belief. When I talk about the original renaissance of Indian cricket, I actually take 1971 as the year of the original renaissance. Something that started in 1971, thanks to Ajit Wadekar and his team, half completed in Brisbane with Rishabh Pant and the rest of the boys, and full complete, or fingers crossed, Leeds starts tomorrow. Can Virat Kohli's team complete the full cycle? Can mission domination be completed if they win against England? Australia and England in the same year will have completed what West Indies and England did in 1971. Ajit Wadekar's team beating the West Indies, beating England. Virat Kohli's team beating Ajinkya Rahane's team as well, beating Australia and beating England. What a moment it will be like. So that's what I said. I mean, if you really want to understand the history of Indian cricket, you can never ignore 1971. And there I was, how do I put it? I'm a little upset that maybe these people have not been given that kind of recognition. We should. What is the state in which Abid Ali is living now? Is he financially decently off? We see Farooq Engineer, because he's a colourful character, comes to Lords, comes to England to watch test matches. But Bishan Singh Bedi, we know because Bishanji is outspoken, but Chandra struggled. All of them. Erapalli Prasanna, Bhagwat Chandrasekhar, people who are still alive. Eknath Solkar's not there, but some of them have struggled financially, and that irks me, that pains me. Can we not do a little bit more for these people, because they are the original flag bearers of Indian cricket who started what we are now seeing taken forward by Virat Kohli and this team. So that's what I say. Oval 1971 to Oval 2021 is the full cycle. Can India complete it at the Oval, Leeds and Manchester? And if they do, 1971 will be that much more real. I think this team has the ability to do so, but as we celebrate this team going into the Leeds Test match, pause for a second, think back to 1971, think back to Ganesh Chaturthi, think back to that Oval Test match, think back to the elephant coming there, think back to Ajit Wadekar and what his team had achieved, and take a bow, because this is what your cricket is all about. Let's accord respect to our real heroes, the original flag bearers who started Indian cricket's renaissance.